right. Hello, hello. We are live. Just gonna get my notes up and then we can get started into drawing stuff. Talking about the magic system and building that out. But Happy New Year, everybody. Welcome to Children of Misery. There we go. Let's get right into it. The first thing I want to do is sort of lay out the different kinds of magic that I have in mind and sort of explain the lore behind that and how it works. This would all be common knowledge in this world. And then we can sort of dive into the visuals of what magic looks like through different people's lenses and all that. So let's start a little section up here just for some notes. So the first thing to know about magic is that it originated from these like titans or gods, whatever you want to call them. The names of those titans is also the months of the year. So for my personal notes on magic, I usually just go in order of uh, months of the year, going through in that order, and then just take it from there. So I'll write those down and then we can talk about each one in more detail. And eventually, I want to make a video kind of about the months of the year and what that means in Misery, sort of a calendar. Maybe that'd be a good one to do in January, just to top off the year. Okay, let's do just a little bullet point list on each one. And I'll sort of, I loosely base these off of the uh, kind of D&D classes of magic. They're not an exact copy of that, but there are going to be some overlaps just because that sort of covers most of the ground of what magic can do in general fantasy settings. Something else to talk about is the system that I'm going to be running this game in, because the whole point of this channel is that it's going to be a tabletop setting. Um, when I start running that game, it will be in a system called Savage Worlds, and the way that magic works in that system is you kind of have this like pool of power points that you can spend on spells. So a spell may cost 2 power points to cast, and then you have less in your figurative bowl, so to speak. And the way I kind of envision it is different people have different sized containers within them of magic. Different potentials. That doesn't necessarily mean their spells are less potent. It's just a matter of what they might specialize in or what they are more inclined to be good at. But sort of coming off from the top, let's talk about Droma. Droma is the most important one because that is the Titan that Misery is built on top of. So all of these guys are dead by the start of our story. But they are definitely influential in the world. So Droma's magic is sort of about ideas or beginnings. Dreams, which is how it kind of comes into fruition. So it kind of focuses on kind of the minds of others, not necessarily mind control so much, but influencing people, influencing objects. The one that it's closest to in the traditional like D&D setting would be enchantment. Like you could enchant a person, you could enchant an object to do something magical, and that's sort of it's the seed, the beginning of an idea. So in terms of magic items, which is one of Misery's biggest exports, they are crafting them by kind of imbuing an object. What's an object we could use as an example? Maybe a sword. So you might imbue a sword with some sort of purpose, some sort of idea. You're giving, essentially, you're kind of giving the sword thought, a controlled thought, a specific thought. So maybe this sword thinks fire. Maybe that's the thing that the sword does, or maybe you're enchanting it to be stronger. So the thought that you are imbuing that sword with is strength. And then Nelio is the second month of the year. It's kind of about creation. Or making things. So this would be like actual like creation of energy from seemingly nothing, I guess. The energy comes from all around you, so there's sort of this magic. We'll have our mage here. You have your own magic, but there's also sort of this energy of magic around you that you can pull from and then release. So it kind of fills up your container, and then within your container you can, I guess like a almost like a water balloon, with like a little nozzle at the end. If this is filled, and then you squeeze that water balloon, it's gonna come out at the end. Not tied up. So I guess something from nothing is sort of the concept. So you might I guess conjuring would be a good word for it. You might conjure fire, or you might conjure a creature to assist you, something of magical in nature. Aurak, this one I kind of took from like Oracle, or like kind of the seeing eye. So this one is like kind of seeing, looking into the future, observing. So kind of around information about people, about places, about events. Fortune telling would kind of fall into that category. Validus is like power. Or energy. It's like just a pure burst of energy. And that energy, you know, at a rapid, fast, sort of like a bolt, could cause damage, or perhaps you are boosting somebody's energy within themselves. That could fall into healing, I suppose. It's like a quick burst. Alvar's sort of the opposite side of that. It's more so about protection. Or defense. Or boundaries. So this one I suppose would be more offense. This one would be more defense. Illus comes from illusion. Or a change in look. Like a mirage. And then kind of on the flip side of that is Nulos, which is more of like changing, converting. Which kind of gets into the more sciencey side of magic that I want to explore in Misery with the kind of technology that they might have access to. But essentially, changing one thing to another, or change in form. I guess alchemy would be sort of like that, but not exactly. We'll get into it. We'll workshop it. And then Mortis, the very end. That one's hopefully obvious that it deals with death or life force. Necromancy would be a good word for it. Because I do want to have necromancers around. The big thing about necromancers, because I've thought about sort of the implications of this magic, is we can't just have necromancers and zombies all over the place. There has to be some kind of cost or regulation within an ordered society. So thinking of roles that like necromancers might play. One thing that I thought of was sort of investigators for like crime scenes or like forensics. Because they can read that life force, they may be able to glean more information off of those things. Another thing to think about, something that I've been trying to workshop and world build in my spare time, is sort of like magical law. Whoa, what happened there? That was fun. But sort of how the law would work in terms of what you are allowed and what you are not allowed to do in Misery with these types of magic. But I kind of want to explore the kind of visual language of each of these kinds of magic and maybe associate them with, I don't know, does it make sense to associate with color or perhaps shape? So I want to be able to describe each of these kinds of magics to players, so that, if you're making it sort of like an investigation role into what kind of magic was used in something, it would be cool to have a sort of guide or descriptor of what each one looks like. So once the players have a sort of familiarity, a sort of guide to each of these kinds of magic, then they can sort of identify them on the spot almost as people are casting them. But kind of going back to our idea of kind of, you have a bowl and you have so many points you can spend on a spell. There we go. Well, I imagine because it's a sort of loosey goosey, I don't want it to be like hard fast rules of like these are the only spells you can do with magic. I want it to be a somewhat softer idea of a magic system where it's just a simple intake and output of energy. So I kind of like the model of this guy right here. But we've got our magic going in, our magic coming out, maybe in a more focused form. But I imagine there are probably different cultures and different ways that people connect with magic. So in a sense, we're kind of making people are sort of a funnel for magic to go into. So we're focusing it all. You know, we're using this energy to do something specific. And obviously there has to be a cost to magic, so maybe we can make a list over here of cost. Definitely number one is it's going to cost energy, personal energy. You know, if you spend all of your points and you are completely emptied of the magic that is inside of you, that is going to exhaust you. So that is one sort of trade-off that we can have with magic. Um, I'm sort of toying though. So in Savage Worlds, the system I'm using for this, there's trappings for your spells. You can sort of customize each spell to each player, which is really cool. So you might take the bolt spell as an example, but what that bolt looks like to you when you take it, it might be a fire bolt. Maybe it's an ice bolt. Maybe it's just an energy bolt or a lightning bolt. So there's not as many choices of spells, but the ways that those things can look for you as a caster might be different. You might be more inclined toward a certain type of energy or a certain type of magic. And I guess one cost is not necessarily uh, spell by spell, but in terms of power, is you do have to have a certain amount of training. That is not how you spell training. You do have to have a certain level of training and discipline to master these things. I think most everyone has magic. Everyone has potential. But not everyone is skilled, I guess. So for common folk that are not going to be investing all that time into training a specific thing for years and years and years, you have to have people that run shops. You have to have people that have jobs, people that are farmers. You still have to fill in the societal needs of the city or wherever you're living in this world. Which I still don't even have a name for this world. I've been doing sort of micro scale world building and expanding out because the whole thing is going to take place in one city in Misery. So I need to have somewhat of a knowledge of other countries, of kind of the world history, um, but our immediate focus is just going to be on the world around us. So I don't need to go into a whole bunch of detail for all that stuff. But I imagine each country kind of has its own speciality, its own look to training. Like one thing that I was toying with was whether it made sense for different places to develop a sort of magical culture around their training. So like you might have wizards that have staffs, but you also might have casters that don't use that. They may not need a particular object necessarily. And one thing that kind of excited me about Droma, our main one here, I'll put a little star. Kind of our main Titan that we're dealing with, like our main magic, is the idea that it is sort of the inception of everything, of magic, of ideas and dreams, and how that affects someone. Because one of the big details I have in the city is that everybody dreams every single night in that city. So if you're born in misery, from the moment you're born, you are immediately exposed to this kind of magic on a constant basis. So I imagine in misery specifically, you probably wouldn't need like a wand. You probably wouldn't need a focus, like a physical focus necessarily, because you have this deep connection already. You know, you grow up with it and sort of nurture it. You have I guess, a sort of a lucid dreaming ability to imagine yourself as the magic user as you want. Components is something that is interesting. I don't know exactly how I want to handle components for spells, because on one hand, I don't want to, from a game perspective, I want there to be a cost to everything, and for everything to make sense and be balanced. From a world building perspective, I just want it to be interesting and kind of unique. So I'm really not sure where I stand on components at the moment. If you need outside materials for spells, or if that just comes from the energy that you spend, or maybe components can reduce the cost of energy. That could be interesting. Do they reduce the cost? Because then that gets into an interesting territory with sort of forging magical weapons. In that maybe in forging magical items there is a material component to it, because you are making an object, you are making something enchanted, but perhaps it takes more material than you need to build the object to actually do that. You know, if you want our example up here of a kind of a strengthened blade, if you want your sword to be as strong as 10 swords, maybe you need 10 swords worth of material to do that. Or maybe the sword always stays sharp. That's another thought. But think about crafting as well. Crafting magic items. I kind of like that idea. I think that makes a lot of sense. To have more components. I imagine it's more complex to set up. It's something like historically, I think it would have taken a long time to figure out, just like any sort of technology. You know, there's building blocks over decades and centuries to get where we are now. It's like there may be magic items that people in modern misery would take for granted, but a long time ago, maybe it was more rare, more fantastical that that thing exists. But yeah, how do we craft something? We need the object itself for sure. We need the components. We need the intent. You know, what are we asking this object to do? If you're gonna make a mop that mops the floor for you automatically when you tell it, what goes into that? I imagine time as well. Both the time to make, but also I would assume how long does this enchantment last? I'll move this list up so you can see it. I just realized the I realized my border is a little obscuring, but that's fine. It's fancy and I like it. Make that a little smaller. But yeah, let's make an example. I think that would be good. Perhaps an illustration. I'd like to make sort of an in universe illustration of how magic works. I kind of like this diagram. I like this example. Maybe a cup would be a better illustration. You know, you've got a cup and it's got stuff in it. Or maybe a water skin. What do water skins look like? Just like a bladder. Got some stitching on it. Actually, don't know. I'm going to look up a reference. Let's be a good artist today. What does a water skin look like? Yeah, I'm not far off. That's pretty much it. Looks like they've usually got some sort of little strap on them. Sort of a attached spout up here. You know, this has water in it. And it's filled to a certain level. I feel like the cup is a little more clear because in the system, we have power points, and each spell has a different cost. You can also, one thing I like about Savage Worlds is you can modify your spells by using more power points. So you could extend the range of something by just pouring more power into it. And I like that flexibility of that system and this sort of idea of putting in more energy into one spell makes it better. But yeah, what does enchanting something look like? Each of these have a color. If I had to associate a color with each of these, let's see. I think Validus would definitely be red. I think that makes the most sense. Sort of the most raw form of energy. Red is a very reactive color. Let's see. I guess we can go down by colors. Green. What is green? Makes the most sense for green. I could see necromancy being green. I could see Aurak potentially being green. That feels more purple to me. I feel like the future, seeing the future, seeing someone's fortune, that feels more purple to me. That's the vibes I get from it. I could see illusion being green as well. Changing or converting. This one's sort of my Needless is sort of my catch-all. This is a weird one. So let me pull up my notes again. Let me see what I actually have written on here. Focuses on the changing of the physical form and properties of an object or creature. Something as simple as digging a hole in the earth, or as amazing as becoming incorporeal. So physical change. I imagine yeah, what other spells would fit in there? I guess if you did like a stone skin sort of thing to protect yourself. Although would that fall under defense? It's not really like a magical defense. That's yeah. I would think defense magic is more like invisible barrier, energy protection versus, changing your physical form. So stuff like that I think would fall under changing or perhaps transmuting. Back to that alchemy idea. I'm not sure what color that would be though. But if Mortis isn't green, if necromancy isn't green, what would it be? I feel like it's always associated with green. I think it'd be interesting if death energy had another color associated with it. We can come back to it though. Let's just put down what we know and see what sticks. I like purple Aurak. That makes sense to me. else do we have? Red, orange, yellow, green, and blue. I guess blue. Let's figure out blue. Like a pure blue. Could be creation, could be Droma. I could see dreams being associated with blue. I could also see it as sort of a pinkish purple as well, sort of in that territory. I suppose Mortis could also be black. Put it down as an option. Maybe Droma is pink. We'll see. I could see defense being blue as well. I guess if we're talking about fire magic, fire would be like orange and red. That makes sense for Validus, kind of releasing big bursts of energy as fire, as a form of energy. You could also release energy as light, though. I'm not sure what that would fall under. Just checking my notes here. Let's see. I feel like blue. Blue could work for protection. It's a safe feeling color. And what else do we have? We also have yellow that we can choose from. I can see yellow as a sort of a changing color. It's sort of the transitionary color from like red, orange, yellow into green. Kind of getting out of the hot colors into the cooler colors. So I could see it as alchemy. Maybe alchemy's yellow. Who knows? We still haven't done orange either. That is to say, if we even go with this concept of different magic, different colors, because maybe it doesn't matter. But I want to try it. I want to see what it looks like. Do like little mini illustrations of what a spell would look like in each of these. Is creation something from nothing? Is creation orange? It doesn't feel orange to me. Is illusion orange? Maybe. We could try that. We'll see where it gets us. I definitely like our purple, red, and blue. I think those are locked in pretty good. I'm coming around on yellow for changing form, alchemy, sort of transitionary magic. I don't think I like orange for illusion. Maybe orange lives kind of alongside. Maybe healing magic is orange. You know, maybe the aggressive, like, quick release of energy looks red, and then the slow release of energy looks more orangish in hue. That could be interesting. So I'm imagining like healing somebody. Let's put a guy on the ground. There's our guy, he's being healed. Like, I imagine if you're like laying on hands. Like, what does that look like? Let's make a new layer. Let's try some stuff out. Orange magic coming out of here. Maybe there's some sort of like glow to it. This sort of aura, wisps coming out. Does that look good? Do we want to try some different colors? There we go. Somebody healing someone. We've got yellow. Oh, yellow does look pretty good. Green looks poisonous. Green reads as poison. I've got my video game brain on, but maybe that is what healing looks like. I suppose you could technically heal someone with... Ooh. maybe healing doesn't go with Validus. Maybe healing goes with death and life force. Would that make more sense? Ooh. Then every healer would be. I guess it depends. I suppose it would depend on how you're healing them. Blue. Blue doesn't make sense to me. Could be blue. Just doesn't read as healing as much. Purple doesn't seem right. Pink also does not seem right. Red definitely looks harmful. I know like med packs are like in like video games you go for the red is your health, but seeing this like red energy go into someone, that just doesn't read healthy to me. I guess that's a major question I need to answer before we move on is in this magic system, is healing where does healing land? Does healing land with energy? Or does healing land... Oop, that's not the brush I was using. Does healing land with death? Or does healing land with power? Does healing look green? Or does healing fall more into these reddish hues? Thinking about death magic, what does that mean? What does life force magic mean? Because the implications of putting healing with Mortis, this mortality magic, that would mean that every healer would be technically a necromancer. I guess necromancy would just be healing taken too far, right? Like you can heal like if you heal a cut, that's one thing. But if you're putting life back into something that doesn't have it, does that cross an ethical boundary? If you're a little too unwieldy with your magic. Actually, that might make sense color-wise if death, I guess there's a scale of life and death. If death magic is green, hold on, we got this. And then like pure energy is like this like red, orange, yellow territory. because that is the order of color. Like red, orange, yellow, then green. Maybe we should make a rainbow. would that would that make sense? Like a scale of energy. Hold on. Hold up. This is sounding cool in my head, but I want to make sure that it works. Because we could have like a sliding scale of like what this energy is being used for. Got purple. And then we've got sort of this pink. So that sort of comes back around. I guess the scale would make more sense. The scale makes more sense as a color wheel than it does as a bar. So let's. So I like the idea of a chart like this, like top of the wheel, bottom of the wheel. And then we've got sort of niches in between them. But where does that slide with magic? That's what I want to find out. So I think that's a fascinating. That could be a fascinating chart that we could draw as sort of like a textbook illustration. We've got sort of a pink category going back into red. We also have white and black to consider. Because where does that fall? Because death magic could just be black. It could just be its own territory. I suppose magic could just be a mixture of hues, depending on what you're doing with it. Because the idea that necromancy is just the idea that necromancy is just really good healing. Although death magic can also be used to like steal life force as well. I think that's where you kind of get into the black category color wise in this. I do like a rainbow. That would certainly make for some interesting visuals if you're in sort of a magic potent area. There's also to consider the Titans themselves have this material in them that is sort of pertinent to crafting. It's called marrow. Um, I don't know if marrow is necessary for it, but it's certainly more potent. So marrow is basically it's bone marrow from these titans. Best way I could describe it. But it's mined from their bodies, so it's not an infinite source of energy. If you maybe it's not an infinite source of energy if you mine it too quickly. Does marrow replenish? But it's in Misery, the Titan's body is sort of between two rivers, so it's sort of decomposing into the rivers. So that's where they gather it from. They fish it out of the rivers and then they compact it into I guess these like little pucks of marrow, but they're very I guess radioactive would be the best way to do it. Like when it's all spread out in the water, it's not as big a deal. Like you probably shouldn't swim in it. Definitely not for long periods of time. But it would be cool to have sort of this like radiation from the marrow because it is essentially just pure magical energy. But having some sort of like radiant vapor that's like all hues of rainbow sounds really fascinating and visually really cool. I should draw marrow. Definitely on the draw list. But let's get back into this conversation with color and magic. Because if anything's going to take up the black, it would definitely be death magic. I think that makes the most sense. If anything's going to have the white, maybe I guess we don't have anything for creation yet. Or is Droma's magic like pure white? I don't know. More and more I'm liking the idea visually that death magic doesn't have color. So I think green is way overplayed in necromancy illustrations as a visual language. I like the idea that it is just completely devoid of color. That to me feels scarier. That makes necromancy I think that would make necromancy look scarier than it actually is. And maybe in a softer magic system, maybe it does make sense that there is a bit of blur between these two. Maybe Maybe life force magic. Hear me out here. Maybe life force magic is on a scale of black and white. Maybe the difference is you're using... Mortis uses someone else's energy. Perhaps Validus is more so putting your own energy to supplement the person that you're going after. Because, like, in terms of power, yeah, it's definitely your own energy. And, like, necromancy spells still cost something, but you are also taking something. I think that's the difference, is you're not taking anything. With this, this is pure release. This could be on a scale of give or release. But if you put more of your energy... Here we go. Here's the complete thought. If you put more of your own personal energy into your healing, it gives it a warmer hue. So then you would have white plus some of these warmer colors. And that creates the hue. So healing... Man, healing equals... energy, which is orange, because that's the slow burn form of energy. Plus life force. I'm going to erase this rainbow for a second because I like the wheel a little better. So it's kind of tapping into both. Which is white. Does that make sense? So maybe it's not, maybe the colors aren't cut and dry. Maybe they do have overlap. Maybe they blend into one another. So maybe Nelio's not white. Maybe Mortis is on that scale of black and white, and it's kind of its own category because it's dealing with life force, life magic, death magic, whatever you want to call it. And then the reason it looks like this, maybe not a pure yellow healing, maybe it's like an orangish yellow. Let me turn up the saturation on that. So we got orange to yellow. It's like an orangish yellow for healing. And maybe that's because there's just like wisps of... It's not that it's yellow. It's that it's orange plus white, sort of mixed together in a vapor. So healing healing is sort of its own category, which is interesting because I imagine healing would be more associated with the Church of Misery and other cultures. You know, you have your clerics, the clergy. There's also doctors. Doctors would have be kind of their own. I guess that's sort of why you would need a medical license, because you can't. There's a fine line between doing really good healing and performing necromancy. You know, at what point do you let the patient go? If somebody brings in someone who's critically injured, that's the moral dilemma that doctors would have to face in this world. Is, do I save this person, or do I tap into this more taboo magic? I like that. I like that a lot. Oh, hello, Blake. I see you in chat. I have not been checking that. I'm trying to open it on my phone so that I can just look over at that and see chat, but that is, I'll have to play around and figure out how to do that. Because I'm not actually seeing chat on my phone where I have the stream open. Purple feels more necrotic than green for healing. Yeah, I feel like purple to me feels more oracle than it does healing or necrotic. Purple doesn't feel right to me. I can't explain it. But it makes more sense in my head that purple would be for that. Because then we would get like fortune tellers that would have like purple garb. I imagine like kind of an eye symbol would be sort of their culture. That just seems really cool to me. And I imagine, like, purple's a very royal color. I imagine royals would want to surround themselves with oracles. That feels like a royal position to me. That feels like a good reason to have purple in there. Yeah, we still don't have anything locked down quite yet for Droma, which is sort of the whole point for this. We went on a big tangent about healing magic and what category that's in. And that just sort of unlocked the idea that everything is everything's connected to each other. Like there's not a hard line between protection magic and power magic. It's more so just the use of that same energy. You like white for creation. I also like white for creation, but I think I'm really liking this kind of life and death scale as well, which sort of puts life force magic in its own unique niche. To me, Droma and Nelio are very connected to one another. There's a very again, it's sort of there's a gradient here. It matters where we put the colors for that gradient. Like, because there's not a huge line between the inception of the idea and the execution of the idea here, like the beginning of that idea. This has to, in terms of like the religious like creation myth of this world. This this makes sense to be for me to be the order of things. So I'm actually fine if these two are pretty close in coloring. I'm also stuck on illusion. Maybe illusion is green. Maybe illusion is green. That sort of gives me Loki vibes. He uses illusion quite a bit. Trickery. Gold for creation. Maybe. Yeah, I would be fine. I would be fine with moving. Am I on the wrong layer? I am on the wrong layer. Let me go back to my notes here. I would be fine moving gold up potentially. I could see it up there. I could also see in healing yellow sort of being a factor. Creation, if you're making something from nothing, in quotes, it's coming from somewhere. Um, but potentially, if you're in a situation where you're having to create tissue to replace old tissue to heal someone, creation of new cells, then that also sort of plays into the coloration of healing magic being this like yellowish orange. I like that. That makes sense. Thank you, Blake. But what is idea? What is the color of an idea? Now we're getting philosophical. And also this sort of change in form alchemy, you know, converting one substance to another substance kind of magic. Does that have a color? Maybe that doesn't maybe that's colorless. Maybe that's what science is in this world. Does magic have a smell? Maybe it doesn't look like anything, but maybe it smells really bad. I'm gonna make a note. What does magic look like to the senses? We have, what does it look like? What does magic sound like? What does magic smell like? What does magic taste like? Now I feel like I'm just quoting that SpongeBob episode. Eyes, ears, mouth, nose, touch. Terrible hand, but this is just for notes. So I imagine these would be good subjects because my players are gonna be in school. They're all playing as children. I have a school system in place. I've actually been doing I've been doing magic curriculum planning, which is really interesting. But I imagine that would be sort of a lesson that you would learn in school learning magic. Uh, of how does it feel? How does your magic feel to you? Does your magic make a sound? Do you connect with magic through one sense better than another? Does that mean someone with a good sense of smell can detect magic? I imagine so. I guess yeah, you would have if you were tracking down a criminal and you had dogs trained on certain kinds of magic following that scent where it was cast. Yeah, absolutely. It may not be a strong scent, but I imagine there would be magical creatures that could be more attuned to that if there is a scent to magic. Do school counselors help the kids learn how their magic feels and affects them? I imagine so. Yeah, you would have like a magic class. You would have a magic teacher. That would be their job is to teach you magic and help you connect with it. I still want to do colors for everything though. Even just a faint color. We've got pink as an option. Let me pull up my color thing. You guys can't see it because I have the I have the stream designed where when I have external windows open in this program, that you can't see it, so you can always see what I'm drawing. What do we have available? We have like Could do like a sea foam, like greenish blue. That could be fun. That's a cool color. Pink is available. Oh, yes, you missed the beginning. Two colors for Validus. The reason I have both red and orange in there is because I imagine because it deals with like power and personal energy. Uh, a quick release of power to be like if you're like shooting a bolt out of your hand, like if you're in a fight, that to me feels more red. But if you're healing somebody, that's more of I imagine that's more of a slow release of energy. You're not gonna. I guess if you're shocking them, what is it, the defibrillators? I suppose that might be a tad more red, but I imagine healing magic is more gentle. Um, so in my mind, it felt right to have sort of a different hue. It's still in that warmer range. It still very much fits with it. And then as we were sort of feeling out the magic system and how all these different magics connect with one another, healing healing's uh, the big wrench in the gears here. But it made sense in order to have the look that I want here for healing. Like I really like the idea of this visual of just like this like yellow, orangish yellow vapor and light kind of pouring out. I want to play with like vapor as a visual, simply because of like after the spell is cast. I think that would play into some really cool visuals of like the residual magics, like when you fire a musket, like there's that cloud of uh gunpowder or whatever. I don't know how it works. I don't know all things. But there's this huge release of energy, and there's sort of a residual cloud from it. And I think that would be really interesting if Magic also had that, where if you were in an area where someone was just using Magic like a second ago, like you could probably still see the traces of it visually. Um, or it smell again. We're coming back to the senses. There might be a whiff of magic in the air because I want it to feel like it's part of the world, and I want it to feel like it's not this mystical thing that's unobtainable, because everyone has it. Everyone has this magic. It's just not everyone is skilled in magic. Yeah, so there's sort of a combination of colors going on here, with healing magic. But I imagine that it would be the case for a lot of magic. I don't think, depending on what you're doing, I don't think your illusion magic is necessarily going to be pure green, depending on what else you might be using it for. I imagine there would be a combination of hues, and that's where this like color wheel I was toying with in my head was sort of coming into play. Because I like the idea that we could do like a chart or something where, like in the art classroom, you have the chart of the color wheel, but you could have like symbols in different colors representing sort of how these different magics flow into one another potentially, and like how the mixes of magic would have different looks. Because these are all more so just like themes around each kind of magic that the Titan would have done. Uh, Changing and converting. It's kind of a scary power, like an alchemy Titan. If you imagine just like a giant whose main thing that they do is, oh, that that mountain in the way, yeah, that's just water now. Like I'm imagining some terrifying consequences. Like once you scale up these powers, each one becomes quite terrifying. But again, what color is a dream? What color is an idea? And what color is alchemy? Because with your suggestion of yellow for Nelio, I think that makes sense once you factor in like healing magic and what it looks like. I guess maybe we should find another example of magic that combines things. Like if I was using enchantment, or if I was using an illusion to enchant someone, to kind of try and play with their mind, to kind of get into their thoughts, a more potent illusion, what color would that be? If you combine green and blue, you get a really pretty like turquoise. I don't know what you get if you combine green and pink. So maybe that one should be like a light blue. That could be interesting. I'm sorry we haven't gotten much into like actually drawing art, but this has been very helpful in sort of figuring out what everything means. So maybe we can let's just do one illustration for now. We could do another stream later and kind of expand on these. Maybe I'll stew on it for a bit. I like to stew on things. But we'll leave it there in terms of the colors, but I like the idea of doing some sort of illustration with healing magic. Let's see what healing looks like. Ah, I need to combine these layers. Merge those. Those are my notes. And yeah. Let's just call this healing. And quick sketch. Let's find a reference picture, because I want to draw somebody healing someone else. Like a medic. Medic poses. Let's see. Like kneeling next to someone. Yeah, here we go. Let's get some references in here. Wow, that is a terrible quality image. Oh, there we go. We'll get a few, and then we'll sort of figure out where to go from there. Yeah, these are all like CPR images. It's not quite what I'm looking for. That one's an interesting pose. Yeah, like first aid. First aid poses. That's the keyword I need. Just someone helping someone else on the ground. So we can clearly see the magic happening. Here we go. Something else that might also be fun. Name that layer real quick. Something else that could be fun is sort of viewing a wound being healed, so sort of like a open wound, and then there would be, I guess it would be like on an arm or something, and just sort of going through the process of how that magic interacts with that wound. That could be a fun chart, because then I could do a fun little animation, not animation necessarily, but kind of a slideshow effect of a wound closing up. That would be good for video. And then what, you have a magic scar. Healing. What does healing look like? I imagine healing more so just uses the kind of internal energy inside your body. You know, you're sort of giving it a boost with your energy that you're pouring into someone. I guess that's the difference, but that would be the big difference between regular healing magic and necromancy. Is you're with normal healing, you're pouring in energy, but you're also sort of boosting the person's natural healing capabilities to just do it faster. You know, creating more blood cells so that a wound can scab over. So it would basically just rapidly close as you're forming new tissue. So I guess it wouldn't necessarily. I guess a healed wound like that wouldn't scab, but I imagine you'd have like a mark on there that would fade over time. Something in the Savage Worlds setting as well is that healing is not instant. Like wounds are much more serious. I didn't want magic to be uh, an all-in-one. Like, oh, you're healed. You're good to go. That's like one of the things in Dungeons and Dragons that I don't really like is that you can go down to basically 0 hit points and then just get a long night's rest of sleep and you're good to go, full health the next day. That really doesn't make sense. If you are that close to death, it would take some time to recover, and that's sort of how the wound system in Savage Worlds works. Is yeah, you can speed things up with healing, but it's like in the moment, in the heat of the moment on the battlefield, you know, you're not gonna completely cure that wound. You can stabilize someone for sure so that they don't die, but they're still gonna have to get some R&R because I imagine it might even take a couple days of applying healing to it. It's a weird angle to draw someone from. I like this leftmost picture, this sort of angle that we have going on there. And this sort of foreshortening of the leg here. That's kind of fun. did not do any warm-ups before this, so drawing people is gonna be fun and interesting, and probably look bad for the first couple drafts, but that's fine. We're not trying to be perfect. We just want to get the idea across. That looks broken. This is why you should warm up. Oh, looks like our stream is poor, apparently. That's no good. Let me see if I can fix that. That might just be my internet connection. So apologies if things are lagging. Still not liking this leg. Do a little foreshortening shortcut here. See how that looks. let's define some of these a little more. I'm just gonna do like a colored sketch just to get the impression of what this magic might look like. Maybe he's got sort of a vest on. Just to give some sort of historical clothing to this. My sort of cultural touch point for Misery in terms of like era is like industrial era London or America. So lots of uh, vests, lots of coats. You know, maybe not as fancy for the working class, but definitely still available, as that was sort of the style all around. So maybe this is just kind of your average Joe Schmo on the street who's been injured. Try to draw some sort of expression on him. Maybe he's got his kind of hat. What do you have? Some sort of bowler hat or top hat? Or a flat cap? Maybe a flat cap. Probably be resting behind his head. That's sort of the brim of the flat cap behind. And then the side kind of going into the interior. he's got sort of a side part here. Give him an ear. Not sure exactly what his hair looks like, but we can give a rough idea. I imagine this guy would probably have like his sleeve rolled up. That seems what you would do in this situation. So maybe he's some sort of doctor or something that happened to be nearby during this incident. In which case, he probably took his coat off. Maybe set it on the ground over here. Fold it up. Just to give somewhat of an idea to maybe I'll look up a reference later for a folded coat. But just the idea in this emergency situation, we've got sort of a story going on. So this guy's hair might be more kept up. I guess, would he be human, or should I make him something else? I guess the focus is the magic in this one, so maybe I'll just make him human. We can play around with other species later. But I imagine his hair would be maybe a bit more swept back, maybe a bit more kept up. That maybe he has a one strand hanging down. This guy's other arm would probably be visible. Something like that. do some coloring here. Just realizing I'm not being a very good streamer right now and not talking about anything. I'm in the zone. But I'm liking where this is going. And some sort of like brown trouser. Makes sense to me. I would be painting over all this anyway, so may not even get to the finished thing in this stream, but that's okay. We can just have fun with it. And maybe some black shoes. Some sort of like yellowed white shirt, maybe a bit dingier on this guy. Maybe a bit cleaner on the medic. And then he would actually have an undershirt. I'll have to go back and clean up the sketch a little bit, but he would have a collar of some sort. Maybe like a grayish vest. Usually they have some sort of like plaid pattern to it. That seemed to be kind of common when I was doing my research, different textiles. So we can go back in later and add some more depth to that texture. Let's see, our doctor, I imagine, has a very, maybe not that bright in the lighting, but much cleaner shirt. Yeah. Something like that. I imagine he's a bit more put together. You know, besides, outside of this emergency situation, I don't think he really cares how he looks in this moment. Probably like black pants. Maybe he's got a fancier vest. Maybe he's got like a green vest or something. Like a nice dark green. That could be fun. Maybe he's got a sort of matching green coat. Again, I might come back later and fix up this folded coat. It's not really the focus of this, but I do like to have a reference when I can. Oh, this guy's hair. Let's just do like a brown. Like a dirty brown. We could throw in, we could even throw in a little blonde into it later for some texture, just to give it some variety. And maybe just like a gray, like a gray cap. You know, his stuff doesn't necessarily have to be matching, just whatever he's got. Then his injury I'm imagining is some sort of like bolt mark, so maybe there's like a residual effect coming off of him. Let's get a nice rough brush. And then if he's struck by that, maybe he's bleeding. So let's get that. Blood is red mixed with blue. That would make it like a kind of a burgundy purple stain. If it's soaking through. It'd be deeper than that. Bit more saturated, but definitely for the bleeding out to the edge. Get a nice blender here. There we go. We love a blender. Yeah, there we go. I imagine some sort of not really gunshot, but magic shot to the chest. Trying to heal this dude. And then let's do a magic layer. Do I have a brush that can do wispy stuff? That is the question. I bet I've got something. I know I've got like a cloud brush. Ooh, that's kind of nice. Yeah, if I turn the opacity down on that. Or maybe opacity is... Yeah, that's kind of nice. It's the wrong color. Let's get a nice kind of yellowish orange. It's a little too yellow. turn up the opacity a little bit. Cool. Something like that. Let's find a cloud brush. Kind of build out the overall form a bit more. I can always lower the opacity. And then I will show you my little trick for making things glow. There's kind of a cloud effect going on. And in terms of coloration, we could also do sort of a lighter toward the center. Since we're dealing with life magic, I imagine it would be more light toward the middle. And maybe we've got little wisps of that coming off as well. Could be fun. Cool. Yeah, we can play around with the blending mode a bit. Ooh, that's really fun. Not the colors I want, but neat little look. I'm gonna set this to normal, and then I'm gonna actually duplicate this. And then set the duplicate to overlay. Something else you can do that helps is we can blur that overhead layer just a tad. So we get sort of this glow effect to it. I'm going to make another layer and just play around with this and see if we can get a different effect. There we go. All combined, it is looking a bit too much like fire, so I don't want to go overkill. Yeah, that's sort of the idea of what healing could look like. I'll have to play around with it in my spare time. We'll come back to it. But I think I'm going to cut things off here for our stream. Thanks for those who are able to join us. I will probably do another stream and come back to this. But eventually I'll be making a video about magic and the magic system. So I'm going to be making some more art for that behind the scenes in the meantime. But maybe I'll stream again next time I do it as well so people can pop in. But thanks so much, and I will see you very soon. Bye-bye.